Hey everyone, Thyworm here with the top 3 best and worst Diablo 4 features from the beta. I played the beta pretty much all weekend. This list is based off of that beta gameplay, and as always, this is just my opinion. I'm someone who enjoys Path of Exile and Last Epoch a lot. I am mainly a Last Epoch content creator, and I came in with pretty much no expectations, not knowing too much about Diablo 4 at all. My main source of information was Asmongold reacting to a bunch of Diablo 4 content and giving his always 5-head takes. Let's start with the worst features. Number 3, performance. Diablo 4 ran very poorly for me at the start. Given my gear, which you can see on screen now, it shouldn't. It even has DLSS available, but for some reason at the highest settings there was constant chopping, freezes, frame rate drops, and the game was completely unplayable. I had to dial down the settings to medium, the frame rate to 60 FPS, and set DLSS to balanced in order to play, and still it wasn't amazing or super smooth. You could say it's a beta, but this game releases in less than 3 months. Optimization tends to come at the end of development, so let's hope Blizz fixes this in time. I wasn't the only one either, as I went on to the Blizzard forums and there many people complained about the same issues, some with much better gear than me. Number 2, the repetitiveness, specifically dungeons. I have the feeling that Diablo 4 is going to focus quite a bit on giving players a bunch of checklists with random tasks to do, events to participate in, locations to find, and dungeons to complete, and that is it. There is nothing inherently wrong with that, but after completing the majority of the dungeons available in the first zone, I already fought the same bosses multiple times. I solved the same puzzles by bringing cubes to pedestals. I cleared out the same blisters and other nasty structures to progress, and I'm already getting a bit fed up with it. And this is just the first zone. Now, we don't know of course what endgame has in store for us, I do realize that, but Diablo 4 may deteriorate into just doing a bunch of mandatory stuff for checklists and battle passes, maybe even daily quests, with a heavy focus on quantity rather than quality. Ideally, a game incentivizes you to go into dungeons and then you have fun in there. Diablo 4 does offer some incentives by having aspects as dungeon rewards, which you can then slot into your gear, and that is a fun progression system, but I can't lose that creeping feeling that this gameplay loop is just going to be this, dungeons, and I'm not sure how long that will remain interesting. Number 1, the simplicity of basically the whole game. This can be a pro, and I think that for the genre this is good, but for me personally I think Diablo 4 lacks a lot of depth that other ARPGs offer, and while at the start and maybe the first couple of months or even seasons you might not notice this all that much, over time the game will become rather bland. The gearing so far up to legendaries is not very interesting. You have basic attributes like life and intelligence, you have basic damage reductions, and then +1 to skills or skill groups, such as summons. Uniques will bring more to the table you would expect, but still. The same is true for the skill tree. It looks fine, but after tinkering around with it, it is extremely basic. There is hardly any skill customization possible, like the support gems you have in Path of Exile or the skill trees in Last Epoch. Even Wolfson has more skill customization than Diablo 4 up to this point at least. I'm aware there will be more customization in endgame with the whole Paragon thing and this sort of massive passive structure it brings, no clue what it's called, but still, Diablo 4 is likely to be the most simplistic ARPG on the market when it launches. Chronic Con might allow for more build diversity in character and loot progression than Diablo 4 by the looks of it, and that game is made by 2 people. Like I mentioned, there are upsides to this approach. Diablo 4 is very intuitive, I do appreciate that. You can respec your skills for free until level 15, so they give you the option to try out a few skills first, which is great. I think that level cap can be increased, but it's a good thing. And most systems are simple and easy to understand, like the vendors, the crafting, extracting stuff from gear, socketing, passives, skills, everything is really easy to grasp. So for others this is a pro, mostly for casual players, but if you like that endless loot hunt for the perfect item and those super intricate builds which PoE and Last Epoch are catering for, I doubt you are going to find that in Diablo 4, at least when it launches. Over time, of course, more systems could get added, and I really hope the seasons go in that direction. Adding more systems, doing a bunch of proof of concepts like Path of Exile does, and see what sticks, and then improve the game over time, adding depth as they go. Then the positives. I could list many more than 3 because I had a good time with the game and I think I'm going to have a great time with it when it launches. Number 3, the world of Diablo. I am glad Diablo 4 went back to a much grittier, darker, twisted world than its predecessor. I didn't play Diablo 3 much, but I was not a fan of the aesthetics in that game. Here, however, from the very first moment the initial cutscene seamlessly transitions into the actual game, I was immediately immersed into the world. The visuals are stunning in the way the light falls, the fact the game supports HDR, I really appreciate that with my monitor, it looks so good. The body parts and demonic presence everywhere and just gore and guts all over the place. Especially in the snow area, it's impressive and it has such a great colorful contrast. The art design and direction are top-notch with a very clear style, whether you're in some ancient catacombs abolishing a demon or running around town, it all comes together. It reminded me a lot of Diablo 2 in that sense, and that's a good thing. There's plenty of attention to detail with birds and critters moving, small graves or statues just outside towns, reliquaries around the main entrances of cities, and of course the way the monsters are designed and animated. It's all there, it's amazing. This world is a joy to explore in that sense. There's also lore all over the place I noticed in like scrolls and statues and whatnot, like people can go absolutely crazy here. Not in the least also because of the soundtrack. Blizzard games always have amazing scores in my opinion, and Diablo 4 is no different. They strayed away from the more bombastic music you sometimes hear in these games and went for much more ambience instead, with violins, string instruments and overall a very toned down, subtle soundtrack. It works, it's not overpowering, but beautiful nonetheless. Number 2, the combat. The moment-to-moment gameplay feels very good. Diablo 4 is mainly a game about killing monsters, so then it's always appreciated if killing monsters feels good, and it does. More than good, I would say. The on-hit effects, sound design and the already mentioned stunning visuals give this game a very visceral, bloody, meaty combat feel, and I don't think this is going to get old anytime soon. I did play only the Sorcerer this weekend, I just wanted to focus on that for now, but abilities like the equivalent of Spark, Chain Lightning and Hydra, they feel great. Even Teleport has a fantastic animation and sound effect. I've heard some criticism about monster density and sponginess, but I found that to be completely fine. Some areas you have less monsters, some you have more. You'll have a mount in the full game too, so I think that issue solves itself. Inside of the dungeons there are plenty of monsters to kill. I don't think it's really an issue at all actually. The sponginess, I mean, to some extent I can see that criticism. Monsters don't instantly die and they also keep scaling with your level in the world and in the dungeons. It felt fine though, although that scaling isn't everyone's cup of tea. I'm not a huge fan of it personally. I'd rather have fixed leveling so you feel that extra sense of progression. But it's a minor thing in the grand scheme of things, and it's good for XP, so there's a plus too. The last thing I wanted to mention about combat is that I really appreciate the visual clarity and the clearly telegraphed attacks of monsters. I never felt I wasn't in control of the fight, and even fighting the world boss with like 10 other people, I know when I got killed it was me that messed up. Number 1. The open world or MMO light elements. This is a more controversial one, I realize that. And not the first game to do it, I realize that. But I haven't played Lost Ark, I'm more of a classical ARPG Andy, and so I didn't really know if I would appreciate a game like this in an open world setting. But apparently I do. I think it adds a sense of immersion to the game that you're not the only one fighting Lilith and that it is not just you. It might clash a bit with the storyline, sure, but still. Towns feel much more lively as well, and even in the open world you might randomly encounter other players doing the same world event as you do, and these world events are typically designed for more players as well. They thought about this clearly, so it's fun to do. While the MMO light approach comes with a few risks, and I mentioned those in the worst features section like the checklist, it also provides plenty of opportunity for features that other ARPGs don't typically have. Exploration is one of them. It is encouraged, and you'll be rewarded for finding new towns, new quests, and those Lilith altars that provide a bunch of passive rewards. You might find some treasures, a dungeon, a cellar to clear. Especially for the first playthrough, this is a lot more fun than just running a typical static campaign like most other ARPGs I play. The fear of some players was that you had to go out in the world to farm materials and whatnot, but to me that felt like a very organic experience. And I feel the nodes from iron and several herbs actually add to the world rather than distract players from the game. The last big advantage I see of the open world is that it should be fairly easy for Blizzard to add a bunch of content for future seasons. The first zone is already quite massive, there are 4 more it seems. I hope Blizz will expand on this and add more fun stuff to do. To conclude, Diablo 4 is likely going to do well. The worst features could be much worse in my opinion. I was pleasantly surprised by how the game felt and played, and while I don't think I'll sink as many hours into Diablo 4 as I do in Path of Exile or Last Epoch, I'm fairly confident the €90 I paid for the FOMO version is money well spent. Let me know your top 3 in the comments below if you played the beta, or if you didn't, get your top 3 out anyway. I'll make more content on ARPGs, so if you enjoyed that, subscribe. For now, thanks for watching and making it to the end. See you soon, love you all, bye bye.